Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 1, Episode 1 review of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Before we continue, yes, I did originally already review Season 1, Episode 1 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? I have reviewed the entire show, but the reason that I'm doing a new review at this moment is because I'm not very proud of those old reviews. Specifically, the first 10 episodes of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? I felt the first 10 episode reviews were not as great as they could have been. They weren't well fleshed out. You know, I felt like I didn't articulate my thoughts well enough. And I feel like I could do a better job, giving my thoughts on each of those episodes. And so I put a poll up on my community tab to ask you guys if you guys would be interested in that idea, since this has been something that has been on my mind for a while. And pretty much all of you said yes, you guys wanted more re-reviews of the first 10 episodes of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? So I'm following through with that, and I'm very happy to do so. I'm very happy to revisit this episode, and it gives a second chance to these episodes to see if maybe my opinion has changed on any of these 10 episodes. I doubt it, but maybe we'll see how things go. I will, of course, have the old reviews deleted as soon as these episode reviews are up and the copyright is settled. But for any newcomers who haven't seen the video and are just watching this video, I'll get you guys up to speed on, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You, and as well as my thoughts. So Scooby-Doo, Where Are You is the beginning of the franchise, the first TV show, the start of it all. This is the original show, the classic show that started it all. It has a nice dynamic of mystery and horror with a little bit of comedy sprinkled in. That's pretty much the formula of it. And you guys know, of course, that I am a diehard Scooby-Doo fan. I've been a diehard Scooby-Doo fan ever since, pretty much since I've been alive, since I've been born. I've loved Scooby-Doo my entire life, and I've currently am tackling the new Scooby-Doo movies. And I will get back to that. I'll be flip-flopping between re-reviews of this and more new Scooby-Doo movies review. And of course, along with the original show, we have the cast of Scooby-Doo that has followed us from the beginning to now. And so I'll go through each one and explain what their role is and who voices them. So first we have Fred Jones, the leader of Mystery Incorporated, and he is voiced by Frank Welker. Then we have Daphne Blake, who's the beauty guru, kind of like more the beauty kind of thing, like the damsel in distress. She's voiced by Steffiana Christopherson. I do talk about what happened to Steffiana Christopherson during my review of episode 17 of season 1 and season 2 episode 1, so if you want to check that out, you can. Velma Dinkley is the brains of the group and is the smartest person out of the group. She's the one that looks through things analytically and pieces together the clues most of the time. She's voiced by Nicole Jaffe. Then we have Norval Shaggy Rogers. He's the comedic relief of the gang, the cowardly comedic relief of the gang. And he is voiced by Casey Kasem. And Shaggy, I'm sure you guys know this, but Shaggy and Scooby are both my favorite characters. Shaggy in particular has always been my favorite character. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. And also, Shaggy's he's also very hungry as well. And then we have Scooby-Doo, the face of the franchise and the mascot. He's the same as Shaggy, pretty much. He's the cowardly comedic relief of the gang. Shaggy does a little bit more leadership, as we'll see down the road in each show. But he essentially is very similar to Shaggy. He's the comedic relief, he's cowardly, very hungry. And of course, Scooby-Doo is voiced by Don Messick. So that's our lovely motley crew that we get to follow throughout the franchise, and I love all of them. I love the whole Mystery Incorporated gang. I love Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby, even though Shaggy is at the top of my list and is my favorite member of the gang, and Scooby's right behind him. I love all the members of the gang, and it wouldn't work without them. So getting back on track, last time I continued my reviews of the new Scooby-Doo movies, with, of course, Season 1, Episode 5 of the new Scooby Doo movies. I recorded that. You guys really enjoyed that. That was the Don Knotts episode. If you haven't seen that yet, you can go check it out right now. It was the first episode that I rated very highly on the new Scooby Doo movies, so if you want to know my thoughts on that, you can go check it out, as well as the other new Scooby Doo movies reviews, and the other Scooby Doo Where Are You reviews. But of course, today I will be covering Season 1, Episode 1 of Scooby Doo Where Are You, titled What a Night for a Night, which was released on September 13th, 1969. So the short synopsis of the episode is, when Shaggy and Scooby-Doo find an abandoned pickup truck with a knight's armor in the front seat, the gang deliver it to the museum in place of the missing professor. However, this Black Knight is said to come alive every full moon. As the gang investigate the night, they realize that it is a full moon and the night has come alive. So as per usual, I will of course be watching Season 1, Episode 1 of Scooby-Doo Where Are You on the Scooby-Doo Where Are You Complete Series box set. This has every episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You, both seasons. It has the fake third season, as I mentioned in my other Scooby-Doo Where Are You reviews. There's no third season of Scooby-Doo Where Are You. There's no such thing. I'm just going to throw that out there. And it's actually just the third season of the Scooby-Doo show, which I will get back to when we cover that show and cover those episodes. Now, as far as the reception for this first episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You and this first episode of Scooby-Doo as a whole, this episode, I believe most fans consider it to be a decent start to Scooby-Doo Where Are You, a decent start to the Scooby-Doo franchise. It's not considered a highly rated episode. It's not the best Scooby-Doo has to offer, but most people consider it it's like an okay start to Scooby-Doo Where Are You. It's a good way to segue in. It's nothing special, but it's not particularly bad either. And in my original review, I did give it 3 stars and agreed with most people and said that I considered it to be an average episode. So will my opinion change on that? Is this actually an average episode? Or am I still going to stick with my rating and still consider it an average episode? Well, let's find out, shall we? So let's look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You. The episode begins with Professor Hyde White driving a pickup down a road during the night, unaware that the suit of dark armor in the back has come to life and left its shipping crate. Yellow glowing eyes appear inside the helmet, watching the driver ominously, and close by, Scooby and Shaggy are walking home from the movies, and Shaggy complains that they are out so late because Scooby insisted on seeing Star, Dog Ranger of the North Woods, 2 times. Scooby's still very excited about seeing it, though. Just then, they hear a rustling from the bushes, and Shaggy insists that Scooby goes to check it out. And Scooby pokes his head in, and when he takes it out, a frog sits on his nose. It jumps off, and Scooby gets annoyed, barking and giving chase to it, with Shaggy quickly following behind. After losing the frog, Scooby comes to a stop, causing Shaggy to trip over him. Then they notice the same pickup truck from before, now abandoned. When they go for a closer look, they find a lifeless suit of dark armor in the driver's seat, and are quickly scared away when its head falls off. And I really like this scene because this is a good tone setter. I did like the frog comedic chase scene, but I really like the abandoned truck scene because it sets a good tone for the episode. It's very creepy because Shaggy and Scooby are walking alone in this dark area, and they see this abandoned truck with a suit of armor in there, and it's very creepy. I don't blame Shaggy and Scooby for bolting the fuck out of there. It's a great scene. It really sets the tone for the episode.
Hey, what's that? Looks like a deserted type pickup truck. Anyone home?
They return with the rest of the gang to properly examine it, and Fred wonders why a knight's suit of armor would be out alone in the middle of the night in the driver's seat of a truck. Shaggy makes a nice joke that he says maybe he's out for the night. And Velma chides him for his little joke, as Daphne wonders who it belongs to, and Fred reads,
Well, the name on the crate says Jameson Hyde White, Professor of Archaeology, London, England.
Shaggy pretty much makes another joke about having heard of hide and seek, but not Hyde White, prompting Velma to explain that it's an English name. And Daphne also finds a delivery slip reading,
Hey, what's this? It's a delivery label that says County Museum.
So with the clues pointing towards a direction that they should go in, the next day the gang travels to the museum where they deliver the knight to the museum curator, Mr. Wickles. He thanks them for it, but fears that it wasn't a good idea considering that Professor Hyde White disappeared, and Wickles explains about the legend of the Black Knight and how it comes to life when the moon is full. Velma asks him what Professor Hyde White was doing with the Black Knight, and despite having already found out beforehand about it. And Wickles replies that the professor was delivering it to the museum all the way from England. And curious enough, in the background, the knight's glowing eyes go unnoticed by anybody. I think Scooby notices it, but nobody else notices it. It's also weird because knowing who ends up being the Black Knight, it makes no sense why those eyes glow. Why the Black Knight's eyes would glow up like that. I'm assuming it was used to throw audiences off, and maybe if you want to make a stretch, it could have been Hyde White in that armor. I don't know how Wickles would have got him in there. I don't think it was, because Wickles tied him up in, we find out, later on in the episode that he tied him up somewhere else. So I have no idea how this Black Knight's eyes are glowing. It could possibly be maybe there's a real ghost. Maybe there's like supernatural indications in the show beforehand, but very odd scene, very odd inconsistency. So two workers begin to move the crate, one of them asking Mr. Wickles where to put it. They take it out as Wickles tells them to just put it in the medieval room, and as Scooby follows the workers, he finds a strange pair of glasses on an Egyptian animal statue. As he picks them up, Daphne calls for him, and Fred says that it's time for them to leave. So while driving downtown, Velma says that the mystery has her baffled, and Shaggy, being Shaggy, asserts that the mystery has only made him hungry and ponders when they could eat. Scooby pops his head up in agreement while still wearing the glasses he found. The others notice and realize he must have found them at the museum. Shaggy wonders what these glasses are for, and Fred suggests that they go to the library to find out. And it's kind of a nice scene, and something we don't see ever again really in the series is the gang going to the library. Maybe there's like a few instances later on in the franchise, but this is a rarity where we get to see the gang go to the library and check out stuff. And this is pre-internet, so that, and pre-Google, so that's how they had to find out information for them. Thank God that's not my time frame, because that sounds like a hassle to go through. They probably were hours in that library before they found what they were looking for. But maybe with Velma's knowledge, maybe they did find the book pretty quickly. Who knows? At the library, they read a book which says that the glasses are for jewelers, scientists, and archaeologists. The book further states that they're made in England, immediately prompting the gang to connect them with Professor Hyde White. With a solid clue that something is up at the museum, the gang plan on returning to the museum to investigate later that night. So the gang return to the museum at night and break in through an upper window, with Shaggy breaking some stuff in the process. There's a couple interesting things about this. First off, it's the first display, this scene is the first display of the gang breaking and entering, and this is something people have criticized the gang for. And yeah, it's not a good thing, but I would argue that because of their suspicions, and because there's a higher evil, there's like a more evil thing going on, breaking and entering really shouldn't be like held up to that standard for the gang. It's not a good thing to do, but the gang are doing it for a good cause and a good reason, so I don't see a reason to chastise the gang for breaking and entering. It's not, like I said, it's not a good thing to do, but in the context of this episode and us the audience knowing the gang's intentions, it's not meant to be viewed as them being, evil kids, or mischievous teenagers breaking into a place simply because they just because they want to, steal some stuff or something like that. Also, something interesting about this scene is we get more about Shaggy, as Daphne explains that that Shaggy is the swingingest gymnast in school, and I find this a really cool little quirk, because we see later on in the Scooby franchise, Shaggy is a very athletic person, which explains maybe his hunger as well, not just because, he's a growing teenage boy, but also he's very athletic, and that's a really nice counterbalance, and it makes sense. He's a skinny guy, he probably, he doesn't just, it doesn't just that he has a high metabolism, he also, he's a very good athlete. And I like that they put that on display. And they do a couple interesting things with Shaggy in this episode. So I really like that they're giving Shaggy a strong start in this episode. So they split up and look for clues, unaware that they're being watched by a pair of spooky eyes in the Indian getup, or effigy. Shaggy was walking by, saw the Black Knight, tapped on it to make sure it wasn't alive. And when he walked by, the eyes looked at him, and he unlocked it, and the gang, finally were able to come in. And for this first episode, it's not the usual split up we're used to. It's close to it. Essentially, Fred and Daphne go one way, Velma and Shaggy go another way, and Scooby's asked to stand guard. And he does it for 2 Scooby snacks, and then we get a nice little comedic scene of Scooby watching the door, but he gets scared by his own shadow and runs to Shaggy, and Shaggy says, "All right, Scooby, you can come with us." And it was a very nice, wholesome moment, because we get to see Scooby, licking Shaggy as like a dog would, and very happy about it. And it was just like a nice, friendly moment for Shaggy and Scooby. I love seeing scenes like that. It's very wholesome and sweet. So Scooby, Shaggy, and Velma bump into the Black Knight and have a brief altercation. Now, something weird about Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby's side of things is when they're looking at around in the museum, Velma and Scooby stop to look into a room, but Shaggy just walks by, and I have no idea why he continues walking. I don't know if he didn't notice Velma and Scooby were like looking in that room, or, just assume they were going to follow. But Shaggy just keeps on walking, and Velma and Scooby also don't notice Shaggy keep on walking, so they go into the room they were looking in, and then they're like, "Oh no, we lost Shaggy." But it's like, how did you lose Shaggy? He was right behind you. Didn't you see him out of the corner of your eye that he was moving forward? And how did Shaggy not stop to think, they're not following me. Maybe I should go back and find them. I don't know how they lost each other. It's very confusing. It was not animated in a very good way to showcase that. And we end up seeing the Black Knight kind of like lurk behind Velma and Scooby when they get to a certain room. Scooby, of course, sees the Black Knight and gets frightened by it. And he tries to tell Velma about it, but Velma is just like, ignoring Scooby, saying, "Not now, Scooby, don't bother me." And she gets karma put at her because Scooby bumps into her, runs off, and hides in a flower pot. And Velma loses her glasses, which is the first instance of Velma losing her glasses. And she looks around for her glasses, and the Black Knight must be blind as fuck if he's because he trips over Velma, and I don't know how, because did he not see Velma lose her glasses and on the floor? What a fucking moron! He just tripped over Velma. Unless the room was really dark, I have no idea how the Black Knight didn't see it. He must be really fucking blind or not have good eyesight. Must have the same eyesight as Velma, because how did he not notice this teenage girl bent over looking for her glasses when he literally just scared them a couple seconds ago? It was so weird. And he gets caught in a trap, and Velma believes the Black Knight to be Shaggy and thinks he has a cold and has cold medicine, and then Shaggy somehow finds them again. And Velma, when she gives Shaggy the cough medicine, somehow her glasses are animated back on her face. So I'm confused. Did Velma somehow get her glasses back? Or is this an animation error and she's not supposed to have her glasses back and she got them back later? It's very odd. So Scooby gets out of the flower pot and runs into the fossil exhibit and begins gnawing at the leg bone of a dinosaur skeleton. But it crashes down, and Scooby gets chased by the Knight when the Knight is revealed behind a wall. I have no idea why he was behind that wall. Who the fuck was he waiting for? And how did he get out of his trap? Wasn't he just in a trap a couple seconds ago? How the hell did he get out of that? And why was he lurking behind there? Did he know Scooby was there? Or was he expecting someone to be there? But anyway, Scooby runs the fuck out of there, and he meets up with the rest of the gang, and he and Shaggy find that one of the paintings is missing. He informs the gang, but when they return, the painting is back on the wall. Now, the odd thing about this is when Scooby chases back the gang and does the same thing he did to Shaggy earlier in the episode, they find the missing painting, and for some reason they're far away from Fred, Daphne, and Velma, which is odd because all Scooby did was just hold. I would assume like Scooby just he just jumped on to Shaggy and they maybe went like maybe a few feet, but from the way this episode says it's like Shaggy and Scooby got flung so far away that Fred, Daphne, and Velma lost them, or Fred, Daphne, and Velma walked off. Like, why did Shaggy and Scooby need to go back to tell Fred, Daphne, and Velma about the clue? Weren't they right there? Very weird. And then the whole gang gaslights Shaggy and says there's no missing painting here. And Shaggy's like, well, there was a minute ago, and he's like, some clue. And it's like, come on, Fred, give him some slack. He's not lying. There's clearly something here. And thankfully, Daphne does point that out, because Daphne points out what she thinks is blood on the floor at first. But Fred, eventually touches it and realizes it's paint. So the gang follow a trail of paint to a hidden room behind a sarcophagus and find that it is full of finished and unfinished paintings. We also get a nice funny scene of Fred asking Shaggy to help him open the sarcophagus, and he's like, don't like surprises, especially spooky ones. And it was pretty funny. I like that. Fred and Velma believe they have finally solved the mystery and figured out what's going on. They decide that they're going to go get the sheriff. However, danger-prone Daphne tries to take the back weight out, and surprise, surprise, the Black Knight's there, and the Knight appears thanks to danger-prone Daphne and chases the gang into the relic room, where Fred and the girls hide inside a World War II era armored tank, while Scooby and Shaggy hide in a World War I era biplane. And I like this scene, and there's a couple things to mention. First off, when they cut to commercial breaks and then return, the Black Knight's feather is gone. Like, how the fuck do you make that mistake? He looks so weird without the feather. Like, he punches one of the paintings that Shaggy's behind, so he better hope that was a fake one, because if that's the real one, he's going to be paying a lot when he goes to jail. I like the chase scene, though, because it's a nice, like, fun, humorous chase scene to cap off the episode. And, we get some nice, interesting things later on, in the chase scene. But I like it because, like, it's the first big chase scene of the episode. It's fun. It's exciting. You guys know how I like chase scenes.
Zoinks! Scooby, like, do something.
Luckily, Shaggy throws his voice to a pot in the other room, prompting the Knight to leave, which I love seeing that scene because it's like a nice showcase of Shaggy's ventriloquism skills, kind of like throwing his voice, his impressionist skills. I like that. I like seeing Shaggy throw his voice or doing impersonations to fool the villain. It's something other cartoons don't, other Scooby-Doo cartoons don't do a lot of, and I would like to see more of that. And then Scooby accidentally flips the power on, causing the plane to roar to life and fly erratically around the room. I have no idea why a World War I era biplane would have any sort of power at all, but okay, I'll roll with it. It's fun. I like it. Eventually, the plane loses both wings from slamming into walls and finally crashes, taking the Knight down with it. The gang unmasked the Black Knight as, surprise, surprise, Mr. Wickles, who was part of a smuggling and forgery ring. It's not surprising it was him. He was really the only suspect in the episode, and I'll get more onto that in my outro. They cut to the next scene, and we see that Wickles also had some help, which was the 2 museum workers, which at first, for a while, I didn't think they were, they're his henchmen, apparently. When I would watch this episode originally, I didn't even know they were part of the scheme, and it didn't register with me, so it was interesting. And also, because they weren't really mentioned, and it's not really explained how they got caught either, but yeah, essentially, him and his gang would steal and sell real paintings from the museum, and then create fake paintings and put them on the wall, back on the wall. The hidden room was used to create forgeries and store the stolen originals. Since Professor Hyde White would immediately recognize the forgeries, Wickles had to kidnap him and blame it on the legend of the Black Knight. Scooby alerts the gang to Professor Hyde White's location with one of his shoes when the gang realize we didn't find Professor Hyde White, and he is found tied up in the Indian effigy, which explains the eyes earlier of why the Indian was looking back and forth in the episode. In the curator's office, White discusses the events with the gang and explains that there is no legend associated with the Black Knight. That's just something Wickles created to cover up the kidnapping, and it's fake. He concludes that Wickles somehow got in the armor on the way to the museum, and the episode ends with the gang seeing the Black Knight at the work desk, but it is quickly revealed to be Scooby, who has put on a part of the armor, causing everyone to laugh. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 1 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? 3 stars out of 5. So yeah, my opinion hasn't really changed on the episode. I still hold my stance that this is a 3 out of 5 episode, so I do agree with my past self. I do agree with that rating. Before we kind of get into explaining what I consider bad and good about the episode, one thing I thought I'd mention is the laugh track. The laugh track has been presented, especially in this episode, as sort of like a gripe that people have with Scooby-Doo in general, but specifically with this episode. Now, I personally, I could understand people's annoyance with the laugh track. It didn't really bother me because, I kind of just tuned it out. I'm more focused on the story and the characters. I'm not really focusing on the laugh track, so it didn't really bother me. But I can understand there was definitely an overuse of the laugh track in this episode, and maybe even in later episodes. But I think they toned it down a little bit to the point where a laugh track kind of ended up being thrown out. And I don't know which series the laugh track, just was tossed aside, but it does eventually fizzle out. It's an unnecessary touch that really isn't needed, but it didn't really bother me as much as other people, so I just thought I'd throw that in there. It's a gripe that many people have, and I totally understand it, and I get it, and I do think the laugh track is unnecessary, but I feel it's easy to ignore. I think if you just pay attention to the episode and the characters and kind of block out the laugh track in your mind, it's easy to go through it. Now, despite this being a 3 out of 5, I still consider it a high 3 out of 5. It's close to a 4, but not quite there. So it's not a bad episode, actually. But first, let's start off with the negatives of the episode and what kind of brings this episode down for me. I'll start with a minor negative with the episode, which is the lack of suspects in the episode. Now, many people can argue that Professor Hyde White is a suspect. I've heard many people say that. You could argue that. Me, personally, I've never viewed Professor Hyde White as a suspect. I think it's kind of a stretch, in my opinion. Why would the guy who disappeared be the guy who did it? It's possible, but in the frame of the episode, I never once suspected Hyde White. He could have, it could have happened, but it's like, to me, it feels like a stretch. So I don't count Hyde White as a suspect. I personally don't agree with that. I think it's a stretch. I don't think it's... I think, like, people are just kind of pulling out of thin air because, like, sure, there's Scooby Doo villains that kind of fake their, disappearances and end up being maybe the villain, and they probably do that in later series. I think even in the next episode with Captain Cutler, he kind of does a similar thing, but I feel like in this episode, to me, there was never any clues or anything that kind of made it feel like Professor Hyde White could be a suspect. Had there been some stuff laid out in the episode that maybe put into question about him, I could have possibly been on board with the idea of him possibly being a suspect. But no, I don't view it as such. The clues don't point towards him. There's nothing really pointing towards him. There's nothing that makes him suspicious. He just disappeared. He's kind of the focus of the mystery. And so to me, he just doesn't count as a suspect. So it's literally just Mr. Wickles as a suspect. And it would have been nice. And you could count the two workers, but they end up being his henchmen anyway. So I don't really count them. They were only in a minor, only in one scene. They were very minor characters. So it was really just Mr. Wickles, and I feel like it just was too easy to guess who the Black Knight was. Again, you could argue Professor Hyde White, and you could say the two workers. I don't agree with either. I think Professor Hyde White's a stretch. Nothing in the episode points towards him. And the workers, even though they ended up being, henchmen of his, too small of characters. They were only in one scene, not enough to sustain, being considered suspects. The only other negative that I really have with the episode is the atmosphere of the episode. So I found the atmosphere of the episode to be kind of non-existent, not because of the setting. The setting was great. It was really because of the villain. Now, I'll get on to the Black Knight later, but I feel like the Black Knight didn't really help with the atmosphere. The setting was great and wasn't bad, but I feel like the atmosphere and tension wasn't really there because of the Black Knight. Because the Black Knight was, in all honesty, just not that threatening of a villain. He wasn't, to me, threatening, and he wasn't, we'll get onto it later, but he wasn't particularly, scary or threatening. I just think, he didn't really help things much. Normally a villain can help, make the atmosphere great, or it could just happen naturally. I didn't really see either. There just wasn't much atmosphere in these episodes, so. But that's all I really got for negatives, so let's go on to the positives of the episode. Starting off with the positives, I really think the gang were fine in this episode. I personally don't think the gang really stood out in this episode. They weren't amazing or anything, but they fulfilled their usual roles, and it was a good starting point. It kind of sets the tone of what's to come. What roles do these characters fill? So, Fred fulfilled his usual role. He was a good leader in this episode. He helped drive forward the mystery, so I feel like he fulfilled his normal role. Daphne helped find some clues in the episode. She's the one that found the paint. She found the letter on the ground near the truck. So, she found a couple clues to help the mystery. Velma was also good in this episode. She helped piece together the mystery. She helped, play her usual role. She helped find, her and Fred figured out, they figured out what was going on. They solved the mystery. And even though everybody kind of chimed in, she kind of helped with the library. She kind of was the head of that, going, finding the books, what book to help, figure out what the purpose of the glasses was. So she fulfilled her usual role. She didn't really stand out much, but she did a good job. And then finally we have Shaggy and Scooby Doo. They fulfilled their usual roles. They were their usual funny cowardly selves. Shaggy, we got to learn a lot about in this episode. I think he was the most fleshed out in this episode. Him and Scooby got a lot, but I feel like Shaggy was the best fleshed out in this episode. We got to see him and Scooby walking home from the movies. We got to learn about him being an athletic person, a gymnast. We got to, see him throw his voice, and, we just got to learn a lot about him as a character. So I feel like Shaggy was off to a great start in this episode. We got to learn a lot of things about him, and it was really cool. I like getting tidbits like that, and he helped kind of lead too. He was kind of like a leader a little bit when they split off, and Fred and Daphne and Velma weren't there, or in the museum. He kind of helped, be the leader of the group. So overall, I think all the gang members were great in this episode. I think they fulfilled their usual roles fine. I don't think they were outstanding or anything, but considering this is the first episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You and the franchise as a whole, I kind of expected that. Like, it's not surprising that they just kind of fulfilled their usual roles, but they didn't go beyond that. Later episodes will probably, it's only when we get to later episodes that I expect that we'll probably get to see the gang do more than just their usual roles. The next positive is the villain himself. I personally thought the villain was pretty entertaining in this episode. He was funny. He was very funny. The Black Knight was not scary or threatening, though. In my mind, he was not that scary of a villain. Now, compared to the live-action movie, yeah, he is. He's more menacing than that. He's funny and at times menacing when he's creeping up on the gang and is behind them. So he has his moments of being somewhat menacing. But because he's such a comedic villain, I don't really get the sense of any sort of danger or threat or tension or suspense in the atmosphere, which is why I think the atmosphere doesn't work. Now, the villain's good. The Black Knight is a classic villain. He's the first Scooby-Doo villain ever, so naturally he's going to be held up to a high standard. Is he amazing? No, he's not that amazing of a villain, but he's kind of fun. Like, I enjoyed him in this episode. He had his moments of being menacing, but overall, he wasn't scary or threatening. I didn't find the Black Knight scary at all. If anything, the setting really helped sell the Black Knight's creep factor a little bit. Not so much, the atmosphere or anything else, but at the same time, the Black Knight didn't really help complement the atmosphere. So he worked in the episode. The Black Knight was a good starting off point for Scooby-Doo. It was a nice first villain for the series, but he was nothing special. He wasn't amazing or anything. He fulfilled what he was supposed to. I didn't have too high of an expectation, and I believe in my original review, I didn't even think he was that impressive either. I still find him entertaining, though. I still find him fun, and I can enjoy him as a villain. I think he's fun and entertaining, and I like watching him. And he does have times where he creeps up on the gang and is menacing, but overall, he's not a scary or threatening villain, so he's not going to be one of the top-tier villains. But for this episode, he works. He's fun, he's enjoyable, I can get behind that. Now, outside of costume, I really think Mr. Wickles was good outside of costume. He told the legend of the Black Knight, kind of told that phony lie of, the Black Knight's ghost and how it would come alive when the moon was full. And it was very intriguing. I really like this kind of, interesting backstory that Wickles came up for the Black Knight. I really think it was cool, and it added a good layer to the villain, honestly. That might be why the Black Knight's also good, is because the legend Wickles comes up with is good. And I feel like he provided, a good, intriguing mystique to the Black Knight about his so-called ghost. I also found the motive of Mr. Wickles to be, / the Black Knight, to be very unique and interesting. I really liked the whole art forgery scheme. I think it was nice and different. The fact that he would take real paintings out, he would sell them on the black market with his, crew, his 2 crew members, and he would put the fake paintings back up by doing it himself in his own little art room. I think that's really cool. That takes a lot of creativity and a lot of time and effort, and I really think that's great. Obviously, he had to deal with Hyde White, who was going to be a roadblock for him. But I feel like this is a nice, intriguing motive, and I feel like it's not something we've seen in a while, at least in Scooby-Doo. it kind of is essentially a money motive, but it's a great money motive. Like, it's a good, unique one. Because I don't think art forgery, at least not for a while, is used as a motive. So I feel like for a first motive, it's pretty creative and interesting. They could have easily just gone for a straight money motive or some stupid land motive. But they were creative with the first motive of, the first villain of Scooby Doo. So I think overall the motive was great. It was nice, it was interesting, different, and unique. I also really liked the mystery of the episode. I found the mystery to be really intriguing and good. I like the idea of what happened to Professor Hyde White. This whole buildup of what happened to him. Shaggy and Scooby go upon his truck. He's missing. He's nowhere to be found. There's something fishy going on in the museum because there's all these clues that point towards the museum, so something's clearly happening there, and the clues help narrow it down, and that's another thing that's good. The clues were really good in this episode. They were really abundant. They helped narrow down the location of where Hyde White could be and what could possibly be going on, and it helped lead the gang towards Hyde White's location and the motive behind the disappearance of Hyde White. So I think overall the mystery was good and intriguing because we're trying to figure out what happened to this professor, where did he go, and why is this random Black Knight armor just sitting in his driver's seat of his car, and what's going on at this museum? Like, why, what is it that someone is trying to hide? It just creates a lot of nice intrigue and mystique to the episode. And my final positive for the episode is I found the setting of the episode to be really good. I actually really liked the setting of the episode. It was creepy and different. A museum at night. Like, the museum was okay, like during the day. But at night, it was creepy as shit with all the stuff that was around. Between the Indian with the eyes. There was, like, a huge, thing where there was, like, a kind of like a round shot, like a POV shot from Shaggy's point of view of, like, a panning shot, I would say, from Shaggy's point of view of what was in the museum, and it was really creepy, the shit he would see. Like, this is stuff I would not want to see. Like, at night, this is a very creepy setting, and it's a shame because the setting is so great and it works well, but there's no atmosphere because the villain is too comedic and not scary enough, and also there just isn't an tension or suspense that comes out naturally outside of the villain or by the villain. So the setting kind of helps saves it a little bit because it's a creepy setting to be at a museum at night where it's dark. There's nobody there, and there's all this creepy shit hanging up. Overall, guys, I would recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. I think it is a good, decent start to the series. Is it one of the best episodes of Scooby Doo Are You? No, it's not even in top 5, I would probably say. But it's a good start to Scooby Doo Are You. It's a good starting point. It may not be the best episode of the series, but it certainly is a good, decent start to the series. It helps ease the viewer in, and it's a good starting point to me. I think even though it's not the strongest episode of the original series, I believe you guys should go watch it. Any newcomers that are wondering, should I, watch Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Go watch the first episode. It's a good, decent start. Is it the best it has to offer? No. You can go look at my other reviews to find which episodes are stronger than One a Night for a Night. But for the first episode in this franchise and this series as a whole, not a bad start. It was close to a 4. It almost was a pretty good episode, but it just was lacking a little bit with atmosphere, and it could have done with a couple more suspects, and it could have honestly been an amazing start to Scooby-Doo Where Are You? But for what they had, I think it was good. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? Do you think it's, amazing? Do you think I'm not, giving it enough praise, and, you think it's an amazing start to Scooby-Doo Where Are You? Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in hearing that. Do you think this was a poor start to Scooby-Doo Where Are You? Do you think this was not the best episode to start off on? Or are you someone like me where you just, or, you know, do you think it's somewhere in the middle like me where you just think it's okay? It's like close to a pretty good episode, but not quite there. But it's also not a bad episode. It's not on that level. It just could have used like a few more elements, and it would have been one of the top tier episodes. I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content. I'll have more Scooby Doo content on the way, but obviously, like I said in the last video, if you guys want more Scooby Doo content, please comment down below and let me know if you guys would like a whole summer dedicated to the new Scooby Doo movies, as well as some re-reviews of Scooby Doo Who Are You? Comment down below and let me know now, so that way I know, because otherwise I'm going to be doing what I planned for the summer special. But if you guys want a whole summer dedicated to Scooby Doo, which I would love to do too, but if you guys are on board with that, let me know, because I would love to do it. So comment down below if you guys would like that idea of a whole summer, my whole summer special dedicated to the new Scooby Doo movies and some re-reviews of Scooby Doo Who Are You? You can also follow me on Facebook, where I have discussions about things we talk about on both my channels, and Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. So, in my next video, I will continue my review of the new Scooby Doo movies with Season 1, Episode 6 of the new Scooby Doo movies. I already talked about what episode that is. It's the Phyllis Diller episode. So, join me next time, and we will continue with the new Scooby Doo movies with Season 1, Episode 6. And then after that, if you guys want a whole summer dedicated to Scooby Doo, then we'll continue the re-reviews with Season 1, Episode 2 of Scooby Doo Who Are You? A Clue for Scooby Doo. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts, my updated thoughts on that episode, join me then. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, peace out.
Where are you? We got some work to do now. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We need some help from you now. Come on, Scooby-Doo, I see you. Pretending you got a silver. You're not human being, 'cause I can see the way you shake and shiver. You know we got a mystery to